Monday morning arrived with unusual clarity. I'd spent Sunday organizing evidence, creating files, building timelines. My dining table had transformed into a war room property. Records, tax documents, printed screenshots, legal pads filled with Harry's strategic notes. The private investigator Harry recommended was expensive but thorough. Marcus Webb had spent 20 years as a financial crimes detective before going private, and he knew exactly where to look for the kind of dirt that made people nervous. HOA management companies are perfect for washing money, he explained over coffee in my apartment. Cash transactions, inflated maintenance fees. Vendors that exist on paper, but not in reality. If your HOA president's running anything shady, that's where we'll find it. I don't need her to be a criminal, I said. I just need leverage. Marcus smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. In my experience, people who assault women with baseball bats usually have other moral flexibility issues. Give me a week. He left with a check for $5,000 and a promise to find something useful. I went to work trying to pretend my right wrist wasn't screaming every time I typed, trying to pretend I couldn't see my coworkers noticing the bandages on my hands. Tuesday brought the first response to our legal filings. Karen had hired Whitman and Associates, a firm known for scorched earth HOA law tactics. Their letter was a masterpiece of legal intimidation, denying all allegations threatening countersuits for defamation, suggesting I needed psychological help for my delusional fixation on a property I'd voluntarily relinquished. Harry called me laughing. They're scared. This kind of overreaction. They're terrified or they're just with money to burn that, too. But scared make mistakes. Let them threaten. We have video. Wednesday, I got an email from Melissa's assistant, the one who'd sent the mistaken invitation. Hi, Lana. It read, I heard what happened at the party. I'm so sorry. I just wanted you to know it wasn't a mistake. The invitation. Melissa told me to add you to the list. She said it would be funny to see you there. I didn't understand what she meant until I heard what Karen did. I still have the email where she instructed me to add you. I know I'll probably lose my job for telling you this, but I couldn't stay quiet. If you need the email for any legal proceedings, I kept a copy. Evidence of premeditation. They'd invited me specifically to humiliate me, to exclude me, to make a show of not wanting me there. The assault might have been spontaneous, but the cruelty was planned. I forwarded the email to Harry with one word. Bingo. Thursday, Marcus called with his preliminary findings. Your HOA president's operation is interesting, he said. On paper, it looks clean, but there's a pattern of maintenance contracts being awarded to the same 5 vendors over and over. The vendors bill cash. The work gets exported immediately, and then similar invoices appear back in inventory a few months later. Money laundering. Classic structure for it. But here's the kicker. Your mother's signature is on all the compliance documents. She's listed as the board secretary. My stomach dropped. She probably doesn't even know what she's signing. Ignorance isn't a defense. If the IRS comes knocking, guess what? They've been flagged for audit twice, but never actually audited. Someone keeps intervening. Want to guess who golfs with the regional IRS director? Karen? Every other Sunday. Apparently, but federal connections only go so far. State revenue services are a different story. One anonymous tip with the right documentation. Don't, I said quickly. Not yet. That's my nuclear option. Your call. But Lana, this is bigger than just neighborhood drama. If I'm right about what I'm seeing, your HOA president could be looking at serious federal charges. And your mother signed enough documents to be considered a co-conspirator. After we hung up, I sat in my office staring at my computer screen without seeing it. This was escalating beyond what I'd intended. I wanted my home back. Wanted justice for the assault. Wanted acknowledgement of my existence. I didn't want to destroy my mother's entire life. Or did I? She'd stood there, watched Karen hit me, watched me fall, and her only concern was that people were watching, that they were making a scene. My phone buzzed. Harry again. Can you come by my office? Something interesting just happened. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Harry's desk while he pulled up emails on his computer. Karen's lawyer reached out. He said unofficially, feeling us out for a settlement already. They don't want this to go to court. The video, the premeditated invitation, the assault, is a PR nightmare waiting to happen. Plus, I may have mentioned we're investigating some financial irregularities. What are they offering? $50,000 to go away, sign an NDA, drop all claims to the property, never contact the neighborhood again. No, I told them you'd say that, so they upped it to 75. No. Harry leaned back in his chair. What's your number, Lana? What makes this go away? I told you I want to go home. They'll never agree to that. Then we proceed. File the assault charges. Pursue the fraud case. Let Marcus finish his investigation. And your mother? What happens to her when Karen goes down? I thought about her face that day. The way she'd turned away. The way she'd chosen her new HOA family over her actual daughter. Chosen appearances over truth. Chosen Karen's power over my blood. She made her choice at 5:42 on Saturday. I said, now she gets to live with it. Harry studied me for a moment. You sure about this? Once we really get started, there's no going back. This ends with somebody destroyed them or you. Then I better make sure it's them. Friday morning, I woke up to texts from 3 unknown numbers. All variations of the same theme. You're tearing this neighborhood apart. Patricia is heartbroken. How can you do this to your own mother? Flying monkeys. Karen's bored allies and their spouses probably sent to guilt me into backing down. I blocked them all without responding. But the 4th text made me pause. It was from my mother. We need to talk. Please. Just you and me. I'll come to you. The first direct contact since Saturday. No apology. No concern for my injuries. Just we need to talk, like this was some minor misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with coffee and conversation. I screenshotted the text and sent it to Harry. His response was immediate. Don't meet her alone. If you meet at all, do it in my office with me present. But I was already typing back to her. Rizzo's Cafe, 2 p.m. Public place. You come alone or I leave. Rizzo was where we used to go after my dance recital, where she'd taken me after Dad's funeral, where we'd celebrated my law school acceptance. If she wanted to talk, she could do it, surrounded by the ghosts of when she actually acted like my mother. Her response came quickly. I'll be there. I spent the rest of the morning preparing. Recording app on my phone. Harry on standby. Marcus, ready to release his preliminary findings if anything went wrong. If she thought she could manipulate me into dropping this, she was about to learn how much her daughter had inherited from her father. Not the house, she'd made sure of that, but the spine, the refusal to be erased. That was all. That. And at 2 p.m., she was going to be reminded of exactly what that meant. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in our old booth by the window. For a moment, looking at her from across the restaurant, I saw my mother as she used to be. Before Karen, before the matching t-shirts, before she decided I was disposable. But when I slid into the booth across from her, the illusion shattered. She looked old or tired, and there was something calculating in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Or maybe I'd just been too trusting to see it. Your hand, she said, noticing the bandages. Your president's handiwork. She flinched. She's not. He didn't mean to assault me with a baseball bat in front of 30 witnesses on camera. You have it on camera. Of course, that was her concern. Not that it happened, but that there was evidence. The neighbor's security system caught everything. The audio is particularly clear. Want to know my favorite part? It's when you told her, Everyone's watching, not stop hitting my daughter. Just concern for your audience. The waitress came by. We both ordered coffee. Neither of us interested in food. When she left, my mother leaned forward. Lana, you need to drop this. The lawyers, the injunctions, all of it. You're going to ruin everything. Ruin what? Exactly. Your perfect HOA family. The one that doesn't include me. That's not you don't understand. Karen has debts, neighborhood problems. If this goes to court, if her reputation is damaged, we could lose everything. You mean you could lose the house? My father's house? The one you promised I'd always have a place in? It's just a house. Lana. No. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. It was my home. The place where Dad taught me to ride a bike. Where Grandma made pie in the kitchen. Where 3 generations of my family lived. But you're right to you. It's just real estate. Just like I'm just an inconvenience. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hands back. Don't. You lost the right to play the concerned mother when you watched your president assault me and did nothing. What was I supposed to do? Are you seriously asking me that you were supposed to protect me? You were supposed to scream. You were supposed to call 911. You were supposed to act like I matter. Like I'm your daughter. Like I exist. You're being dramatic. I have a bruised wrist and stitches in my palms. That's not drama. That's evidence. She sat back and I saw the shift happen. The concerned mother mask slipped, revealing something colder underneath. What do you want? Lana, I want my home back. That's not possible. Then I want justice. Criminal charges for assault. Civil suits for fraud. Did you know Karen prevented my name from being added back to the deed? The quit claim you signed 8 years ago. It was never recorded. Mysteriously lost in the system. Her face went pale. I didn't know that. Really? Because your signature is on a lot of interesting documents. Export papers for maintenance contracts that don't seem to exist. Tax filings that don't match bank deposits. You're the board secretary after all. I don't know anything about the business. I just sign what Karen tells me to sign. Ignorance isn't a legal defense, Mom. But it is a reason to cooperate with investigators to maybe avoid federal charges to possibly keep yourself out of prison. Prison? Her voice cracked. Lana, you wouldn't. I'm your mother. Were you my mother at 5:42 last Saturday when I was on my knees in the driveway bleeding? Were you my mother when you had matching HOA Family t-shirts made for everyone but me? Were you my mother when you erased me from your life like I was just a bad first draft? She started crying then. Quiet tears that might have moved me once. But I'd spent too many days looking at evidence building my case, transforming my pain into something useful. Karen loves me, she said finally. She takes care of me. Her allies accept me. And the price of that love is pretending I don't exist. The price is choosing the life I have now over the past. Can't you understand that your father is gone? That life is over. I had to move on. Moving on doesn't require erasing me. Doesn't it? She looked up, tears still streaming. Karen made it very clear from the beginning. She wanted a fresh start, a new neighborhood, no complications from previous residents. Her ex-board agreed to the same terms. She doesn't come around either. And you agreed to that to cutting me out. I thought you'd understand. You were an adult. You had your own life. And I'd still see you sometimes, just separately, quietly. But then you kept pushing. Kept trying to insert yourself where you weren't wanted. Insert myself. I'm your daughter and I'm Karen's president. That's who I am now. That's the life I chose. Why can't you accept it? I stared at her, this stranger wearing my mother's face. Because accepting it means accepting that I never mattered to you, that I was just something you had to manage until you could find a better HOA family. That's not true, isn't it? Tell me, Mom, if you had to choose right now, Karen or me, your president or your daughter, who would you pick? She was quiet for so long. I thought she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I already chose. And there it was, the truth sitting between us like a corpse. I pulled out my phone, typing quickly. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Sending an email to my lawyer, telling him to proceed with everything. Criminal charges, civil suits, the IRS tip about Karen's business. All of it. Lana, wait, you had a chance to choose differently, to say, I choose my daughter, to show even a hint of remorse for what happened. Instead, you came here to protect Karen, to save your new life, to once again pick them over me. Please, we can work something out. Maybe we can buy you out of any claim to the house. Give you money to start fresh somewhere else." I hit send and stood up. "I don't want money. I want justice. And since you've made it clear I'll never have a mother again, I might as well have that instead. You're destroying your neighborhood." "No," I said, dropping money on the table for the coffee. "You destroyed our family the day you decided I was expendable. I'm just documenting the damage." I walked out of Rizzo's for the last time, past the booth where she'd once told me I could be anything I wanted. Past the counter where Dad had lifted me up to see the dessert case, past all the memories of when family meant something more than matching t-shirts and blood on concrete. My phone buzzed. "Harry, got your email. We're filing everything Monday morning." "You sure?" I looked back through the window. My mother was still sitting in the booth crying into her coffee. For a moment, just a moment, I felt the pull of guilt, of obligation, of a daughter's duty to forgive. Then I remembered the sound the bat made when it hit my wrist. The silence of 30 people who could have helped and didn't. The years of being erased, minimized, told I was a ghost haunting someone else's happiness. I'm sure I told Harry file it all. What about the nuclear option, the IRS? I thought about what Marcus had found, what my mother had signed, how much she stood to lose if investigators started looking too closely at Karen's operation. "Set up the meeting," I said. "If she wants to play the devoted ally, she can share in the consequences. Maybe federal prison will give her time to remember she had a daughter once." "That's harsh, Lana." "No," I said, walking to my car, leaving Rizzo and all its ghosts behind. "That's justice. And unlike family, justice doesn't play favorites." I drove away, already composing the email I'd sent to Marcus. The one that would start the process of unraveling Karen's careful financial constructions. The one that would make my mother's choice to stand by her the most expensive decision of her life. She'd chosen her over me. Now she could choose her over her freedom, too. Monday arrived with a thunderstorm that felt appropriate. Harry filed our papers at 9 a.m. Sharp criminal complaint for assault, civil suit for property fraud, and a formal notification to the IRS regarding potential financial irregularities at Sunnyvale HOA management. By noon, my phone was exploding. The first call was from Karen herself, which surprised me. I'd expected her to hide behind lawyers, but there she was, her voice tight with barely controlled rage. "You vindictive little," she started, which told me everything about how the morning had gone for her. "Karen, I'm recording this call. Please continue threatening me. My lawyer will find it useful." A pause, then more controlled. "What will it take to make this go away? I've been clear about what I want. The house is off the table. Then we have nothing to discuss. Do you have any idea what you're doing? You're going to destroy your mother." "No, Karen. You destroyed her the day you made her choose between being your ally and being my mother. I'm just shining a light on the wreckage. She's been crying all weekend. She can't sleep, can't eat. Is that what you want?" What I wanted was to attend a neighborhood anniversary party without being assaulted. We don't always get what we want. "Listen, you little," she caught herself. "We can work this out. The assault charge is nonsense. I barely touched you. The video says otherwise. So do the medical records. So do the 30 witnesses. None of them will testify against me. They don't have to. The video speaks for itself. But Karen, that's the least of your problems now. What's that supposed to mean? Check your email. Your business email. The one registered with the state for Sunnyvale HOA management. I heard her typing. Then a sharp intake of breath. You sent something to my vendors. To the 5 vendors who keep billing the same contracts over and over. The ones who bill cash. The ones whose addresses match empty lots. I'm sure they'll be very interested to know that the IRS has been notified about their transactions. You don't know what you're dealing with. Money laundering, tax evasion, wire fraud. Actually, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. I work in legal compliance. Remember, I see this kind of scheme all the time. These people, they're not the kind of people you want to mess with. Then you shouldn't have gotten into business with them. And you definitely shouldn't have made my mother a signatory on the accounts. More silence. I could practically hear her calculating, trying to find an angle. What if we give you the house? I sat up straighter. Excuse me. The house? You want it so bad? Fine. We'll sign it over to you. Patricia and I will move. You can have your precious family home. But you drop everything else. The charges, the IRS notification, all of it. It was everything I'd said I wanted. My father's house, my home, the place Karen had stolen through legal manipulation and emotional violence. And my mother agrees to this. She'll agree to whatever I tell her to agree to. Of course she would, because that's who she'd become. Or maybe who she'd always been, and I'd just been too young and naive to see it. I needed in writing, I said, a formal offer from your attorney, full transfer of the property to me, free and clear. No liens, no conditions, no takebacks, and you'll drop everything, call off the IRS. If the deal is right, I'll have my lawyer send something over this afternoon. Karen, one more thing. If you or anyone in your board contacts me again outside of legal channels, the deal is off and I release everything to the feds. Are we clear, Crystal? She hung up without another word. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, feeling empty. Was this victory? Getting my house back through what amounted to legal blackmail. Harry called 5 minutes later. Just got off the phone with Whitman. They're drafting a property transfer agreement. Full ownership to you in exchange for dropping all claims and investigations. Lana, this is huge. You won. Did I? You're getting the house. That's what you wanted. I wanted my neighborhood back. The house was just a symbol. Symbols matter. And this one comes with about $500,000 in equity. But I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about Sunday dinners that would never happen. Birthday cards I'd never receive. A mother who'd chosen her new HOA life over her daughter's blood on the driveway. The formal offer came through at 3 p.m. It was everything Karen had promised. Full transfer of the property. No conditions. All I had to do was sign away my right to seek justice for the assault, withdraw the fraud claims, and send a retraction to the IRS. It's a good deal, Harry said, reviewing the documents in his office. Better than we could have gotten in court. Honestly, Karen must be really scared of that IRS investigation. She should be. Marcus found evidence of over $2 million in suspicious transactions. Transactions your mother signed off on. Yes. Harry set down the papers. You could take this deal and walk away clean. Have your house, restart your life. Put this whole mess behind you. Or we could refuse. Push forward with the criminal charges. Let the IRS do their thing. But Lana, if we do that, your mother probably goes to prison. Karen definitely does. The house gets seized as asset forfeit. You end up with nothing but the satisfaction of justice. I picked up the transfer agreement. 20 pages of legalese that boiled down to one simple transaction. My silence for my home. How long do I have to decide? They want an answer by 5 p.m. 2 hours to decide my mother's fate. 2 hours to choose between justice and property. 2 hours to determine whether I was my father's daughter or just another player in Karen's world of transactions and compromises. I thought about the look on my mother's face at Rizzo's. I already chose, she'd said, past tense. Like choosing Karen over me wasn't a daily decision, but a single moment already behind her. Can I use your conference room? I asked Harry. I need to make a call. He nodded and left me alone. I dialed a number I hadn't used in 2 years. Aunt Sarah. It's Lana. Yes. I know it's been too long. Listen, I need to ask you something about Mom. My father's sister had never liked my mother. The feeling had been mutual. But Sarah had perspective I needed. Has she called you? I asked after explaining the situation. No. We haven't spoken since your father's funeral. She made it very clear I wasn't welcome in her new life. Just like me. Oh, honey, I tried to warn you. When she started lying with that woman, I could see what was happening. She was rewriting her whole history, pretending your father never existed, pretending she'd never had a life before Karen. And that meant pretending I never existed either. She's a survivor. Your mother always has been. She survived a difficult childhood by marrying your father. Survived his death by marrying Karen's vision. She'll survive whatever comes next by becoming whoever she needs to be. Even if it means I lose her forever. Lana, sweetheart, you lost her the day she decided Karen's power mattered more than your father's memory. This is just the paperwork catching up to reality. After we hung up, I sat in Harry's conference room staring at the transfer agreement. My phone showed 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes to decide. I thought about my father, about what he would want. He'd love that house, but more than that, he'd love justice. He'd been the kind of man who returned extra change at the store, who reported income the IRS would never catch, who taught me that doing right mattered more than doing well. I thought about my mother, who'd stood behind the woman who hit her daughter, and worried only about appearances. I thought about Karen, so sure power could buy her way out of consequences. I thought about myself at 5:42 p.m. last Saturday, on my knees in the driveway, blood on my hands, and betrayal in my heart. At 4:59 p.m., I walked back into Harry's office. So, he asked, do we take the deal? No, I said. We don't take the deal. Harry's eyebrows shot up. You're sure this is the house? Lana, everything you said you wanted? I wanted justice more. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll notify opposing counsel. This is going to get ugly. It's been ugly since 5:42 last Saturday. At 5:03 p.m., Harry sent the rejection. By 5:07, Karen was calling Harry's office line, screaming so loud I could hear her from across the room. Harry put her on speaker. Biggest mistake of your pathetic life. Do you know who you're with? I'll destroy you. I'll make sure you never missed her. Hankinson. Harry interrupted calmly. You're on speaker and being recorded. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the assault charges? The line went dead. Tuesday morning brought the full weight of Karen's response. Process servers at my apartment, at my office. Lawsuits for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, interference with business relations. The Whitman firm was earning their retainer burying us in paper. But Wednesday brought our own surprise. IRS Criminal Investigation Division paid Karen a visit this morning. Marcus told me over coffee. Seized computers, files, everything. Word is they found exactly what we said they'd find. And my mother, they took her in for questioning. She's not under arrest yet. But Lana, some of those documents she signed, she had to know something was wrong. Nobody's that willfully ignorant. I thought about all the times she'd looked away from uncomfortable truths. My father's cancer diagnosis she'd ignored until he collapsed. My bruises from school bullies she'd pretended not to see. The obvious signs that Karen was isolating me from the neighborhood. Maybe willful ignorance was her superpower. Thursday was quiet. Too quiet. Like the eye of a hurricane. I went to work, processed compliance reports, pretended my life wasn't exploding in slow motion. But I kept checking my phone, waiting for something. It came at 11 p.m. A call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Lana Monroe? A woman's voice. Professional but tired? Yes. This is Agent Martinez with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. I'm calling about Patricia Henson. She's asked to speak with you. She says she has information relevant to our investigation, but she'll only share it if you're present. She wants me there. She says you're the only person she trusts to tell the truth to. Can you come to our offices tomorrow morning? 9 a.m.? I almost laughed. Now she trusted me. After choosing Karen. After watching her assault me. After trying to buy me off. I'll be there, I said. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about my mother in a federal building finally ready to tell the truth about something. Better late than never. Or too little too late. Friday morning, I met Agent Martinez in the lobby of the federal building. She was younger than I'd expected, sharp-eyed and efficient. Before we go up, she said, you should know your mother's in serious trouble. She signed documents certifying fraudulent contracts. She transferred money between accounts to hide income. She may claim she didn't know, but ignorance isn't a defense. Exactly. However, if she cooperates fully, provides evidence against the primary actors, we might be able to work out a deal. Probation instead of prison time, but she has to be completely honest. She's not good at that. Then she'd better learn fast. The interview room was sterile, fluorescent lit with a metal table and uncomfortable chairs. My mother sat on one side, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing a wrinkled blouse I recognized from years ago before Karen's power upgraded her wardrobe. Lana, her voice cracked. Thank you for coming. I sat across from her, Agent Martinez beside me. Another agent I hadn't met sat next to my mother. Mrs. Henson. Agent Martinez began. You said you had information to share. We're recording this interview. My mother nodded, her eyes fixed on me. I knew, she said simply. I knew what Karen was doing. Not all of it, but enough. Mom, no, let me say this. I knew the maintenance contracts weren't real. I knew the vendors were fake. I knew we were hiding money from the IRS. I knew because Karen explained it to me, told me it was the only way to maintain our lifestyle. And I went along with it because she paused, tears starting, because I was terrified of being poor again, of being alone again, of being the widow with the dead husband and the disappointed daughter. Disappointed. She looked at me directly. Then you were always so much like your father, so ethical, so upright. Looking at you was like looking at his ghost, judging me for moving on, for wanting nice things, for choosing security over, she gestured helplessly, over everything else. I never judged you for moving on, I said quietly. I judged you for erasing me in the process. I know that now. When I saw Karen hit you when I stood there and did nothing, I saw myself. What I'd become. This person who would watch her own daughter be assaulted and worry about the neighbor's opinion. She turned to Agent Martinez. I'll testify. I'll provide all the records. I'll tell you everything. Karen has a safe in the house with the real books. The password is our anniversary date. Which anniversary? The other agent asked, making notes. Your wedding? No. My mother said, her voice bitter. The anniversary of the day Lana's father died. Karen thought it was funny building our new life on that date, said it was poetic. I felt sick. Even I hadn't known that cruel detail. There's more, she continued. The contracts aren't just money laundering. Some of them are stolen services, revinded, shipped overseas. Karen has connections at the county who help with the paperwork. I have names, dates, everything. I kept copies of things just in case. Just in case of what? Agent Martinez asked. Just in case she ever did to me what she did to Lana last Saturday. Just in case I needed leverage to get out. She looked at me again. I'm not brave like you. I couldn't just walk away. I needed insurance. So, you stayed with a woman you knew might hurt you, who was committing federal crimes, who had already hurt your daughter. I stayed with a woman who paid for my life, who made me feel important, who gave me a neighborhood that actually seemed to want me around. Her voice turned bitter. Turns out they only wanted me as long as I played my role. The moment I mentioned maybe putting Lana back on the house deed, just as a gesture, Karen made it very clear what would happen if I tried. What did she say? Agent Martinez leaned forward. She said I'd end up like her first ally, living in a one-bedroom apartment, working retail, begging for scraps. She said I'd lose everything, including the allies I'd come to think of as mine. Melissa, Mark, even Tony, they were my second chance at being a mother. A chance to get it right this time. Get it right? I couldn't help the anger in my voice. What did you get wrong the first time? I loved you too much, she said simply. It made me weak when your father died. Made me cling to you in ways that weren't fair. Karen's allies didn't need me like that. They already had their lives, their own families. I could be the fun stepmom, the one with power and parties and no complicated history. It was easier. I repeated. Yes, easier. And I'm a coward who always chooses easier. Until last Saturday when I watched my president assault my daughter and I realized easier had turned me into a monster. Agent Martinez cleared her throat. Mrs. Hankinson, are you willing to wear a wire? Help us get Karen on tape discussing these crimes. She's too careful for that now. But her son Tony isn't. Tony's drunk half the time. Loves to brag about the neighborhood business. He'll talk to me. Mom, I said, if you do this, really do this, Karen will destroy you. You know that, right? You'll lose everything. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I already lost everything. I lost it at 5:42 last Saturday when I chose looking good over doing good. When I chose my president over my daughter. When I chose a lie over my life. This could mean prison time, Agent Martinez warned. Even with cooperation. I know, my mother said. But at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. And maybe someday my daughter will be able to look at me again, too. She reached across the table, her hands stopping just short of mine, asking permission for contact. She'd forfeited the right to demand. I thought about justice, about righteousness, about the clear lines between right and wrong that my father had taught me. Then I thought about mercy, about second chances, about the complicated grays that make up real life. I took her hand. It was smaller than I remembered, and it trembled in mine. Okay, I said. Let's do this. Let's burn it all down and see what grows from the ashes. Agent Martinez smiled grimly. Ladies, let's discuss exactly how we're going to take down Karen Hankinson. And there, in that fluorescent-lit federal building, my mother and I began plotting the destruction of the woman who'd tried to erase me. Together, like family, like the family we might still figure out how to be once all the lies were finally burned away. The takedown happened faster than anyone expected. My mother wore a wire to Sunday dinner and Tony 3 drinks in practically wrote the prosecution's case for them. He bragged about the smart money moves his mother made. Detailed the entire money laundering operation. Even joked about the stolen services they'd moved through the HOA. Mom's got that county judge in her pocket, too. Tony slurred, not noticing how my mother kept steering him back to specifics. Remember that audit that got dropped one phone call? Done. By Monday morning, federal agents were at every property Karen owned. They seized the business, the contracts, the bank accounts. They found the safe my mother had told them about with records going back 10 years. Karen had been meticulous about documenting her crimes, confident she'd never be caught. The arrest happened at her golf club. Karen in handcuffs on the 9th hole, her Wednesday morning foursome watching in shock. The local news ran the footage for weeks, but I wasn't there to see it. I was in housing court filing an emergency motion. Your Honor, Harry argued. The property at 47 Maple Street was purchased with legitimate funds for my client's father's life insurance. The fraudulent covenant occurred years before any criminal activity. We're asking the court to recognize Ms. Monroe's rightful claim before the asset forfeit proceedings begin. It took 3 weeks of legal maneuvering, but the judge agreed. The house had been bought clean, transferred dirty. I had a valid claim that predated the criminal enterprise. The IRS could have Karen's business, her contracts, her bank accounts, but not my father's house. The day I got the keys back, my mother was there, out on bail, awaiting sentencing, wearing an ankle monitor that clashed with her designer shoes. She looked older, smaller, but somehow more real than she had in years. I can't go in, she said, standing at the foot of the driveway. The restraining order. I know. We stood there awkwardly. 2 women who'd once been mother and daughter, now just what survivor and witness, victim and accomplice. I'm going to prison, she said quietly. My lawyer thinks 18 months, maybe 2 years with good behavior. The cooperation agreement helped. But you still signed the documents. Yes. She looked at the house, her eyes distant. Your father would be so disappointed in me. He would be, I agreed. But he'd also believe in redemption, in second chances. He was good like that. You're good like that, too, she said. Even after everything, you took my hand in that federal building. You could have let me burn alone. We all burn alone in the end. But sometimes, if we're lucky, someone holds our hand while we do it. She smiled sadly. When did you become so wise? 5:42 p.m. Last Saturday. Amazing what you can learn when you're face down in a driveway. She flinched but didn't look away. I'll never forgive myself for that. Never. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to do better. To be better. Maybe not for me. That ship has sailed. But for yourself. For whoever you decide to be after Karen. After prison. You mean? After prison. I agreed. We stood there a moment longer than she turned to go. Lana, that pie you brought to the party. Grandma's recipe. Did they? They threw it away. Melissa made sure I saw her do it. I'm sorry. Don't be. I made another one yesterday. It's cooling on the counter. The house smells like cinnamon and memories. She was crying now. Quiet tears that seemed more honest than anything I'd seen from her in years. I love you, she said. I know I've got no right to say that anymore, but I do. I know, I said. And maybe someday when you get out, when you figured out who Patricia is without Karen or Dad or anyone else defining you, maybe we can try again. Not as mother and daughter that's broken beyond repair. But as 2 women who survived the same woman and came out different, but standing. She nodded and walked away. I went inside my father's house, my house, and stood in the kitchen that smelled like apples and cinnamon. The walls still needed repainting. Karen's beige was slowly being covered with the warm yellows I remembered from childhood. The marks of my height were there, faint, but visible if you knew where to look. I thought about justice, about what it cost and what it gave back. Karen was facing 20 years. Her allies had scattered their inherited power frozen by federal seizure. Tony was in rehab finally. Melissa had moved to California as far from the scandal as she could get. Mark had actually called me awkwardly apologetic, saying he'd had no idea how bad things had gotten. My mother would serve her time, then emerge to rebuild a life without facades or false neighborhoods. Maybe she'd find her way back to something real. Maybe not. But she'd have the chance to try. And me. I had my house, my home, the place where 3 generations of my family had lived and loved and made mistakes and tried again. It wasn't the victory I'd imagined when I started this war. It was smaller, sadder, but somehow more true. My phone buzzed. Harry texting wine and war stories. My place 7 p.m. You've earned it. I smiled and texted back. Make it 8. I want to watch the sunset from my porch first. And I did. I sat on the steps where I'd skinned my knees, learning to ride a bike, where I'd waited for prom dates, where I'd cried after Dad's funeral. The same steps where Karen had picked up that bat setting in motion, a destruction that consumed her whole paper kingdom. The sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. And I thought about neighborhoods, the ones we're born into, the ones we choose, and the ones we build from the ashes of what came before. Blood makes you related, but choices make you family. And sometimes the best choice is to walk away, to refuse to play by rules that say, your pain doesn't matter. Your blood doesn't count. Your existence is inconvenient. At 5:40 p.m., exactly 1 month after Karen swung that bat, I stood up and went inside. Not as a guest or a ghost or a girl begging for belonging, but as the owner of my own story, the keeper of my own home, the architect of my own justice. The dress code no longer mattered. This was my house, and I made the rules now. And the first rule: family isn't about blood or marriage or matching t-shirts. It's about who shows up when you're bleeding in the driveway. It's about who holds your hand while you burn down the lies. It's about who believes you deserve to exist fully and loudly and without apology. By that definition, I had more family than Karen ever did. It just took a baseball bat and a federal investigation to help me see it. I closed the door, locked it, and started planning the housewarming party. A real one with people who knew my name and used it, with Harry and Marcus and Agent Martinez, who'd become a friend. With the Johnsons from next door. With Aunt Sarah driving up from Boston. With everyone who'd chosen justice over comfort. Truth over convenience, right over easy. The guest list was shorter than Karen's had been, but every single name on it belonged to someone who would have helped me up from that driveway. And that made all the difference. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. Share your thoughts on what you would have done in my situation. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. And hey, if you really want to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it, hit that hype button. Your support means everything. Until next time, remember, you deserve to be treated like family by the people who claim to love you. The weeks that followed the filing were a masterclass in Karen-style retaliation. Process servers showed up at my office twice. Once during a compliance meeting where I had to explain to my boss why the HOA president was suing me for defamation of her perfectly legal neighborhood governance. The look on his face when I slid the complaint across the table was priceless. Half horror, half, please don't drag the company into this. I kept my voice steady, the same tone I used when auditing shady pharma contracts. It's personal, I said. But the fraud part touches public funds. He nodded slowly, then quietly offered the company's in-house counsel as backup. I smiled and declined. Harry was already building an airtight case. Adding more lawyers would only complicate the paper trail I loved so much. Marcus sent daily updates that read like thriller novels. Vendor 3 just wired $87,000 to an offshore account. Same routing Karen used last quarter. Got the bank records. I printed every page, highlighted in yellow, stacked them like trophies on my kitchen counter. Each sheet felt like another swing of that bat reversed. Pain turned into power. My mother's texts started coming in at odd hours. Lana, the ankle monitor itches. Can we talk? I left them unread for days, then finally replied with a single screenshot. The neighbor's doorbell video paused on the exact frame where Karen's bat connected with my wrist. No words, just the image. Her reply was a single crying emoji. I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered the matching shirts. The way she'd shrugged like, "This is how it is now," and the feeling vanished. Harry called one afternoon while I was repainting the garage the same yellow my dad and I had used when I was 7. Judge granted the injunction. No more special assessments. No more covenant enforcement until trial. You're free to park, plant flowers, live like a normal human again. I laughed so hard I dropped the roller. Paint splattered across my shoes. Bright, messy, alive. Tell me the board's reaction. Karen's lawyer screamed, "Judicial overreach," for 10 minutes. Then hung up. I think she's cracking. Good. Let her crack. Let the whole Sunnyvale facade crack until the fake vendors, the hidden ledgers, and the stolen neighborhood dues spilled out for everyone to see. The Johnsons invited me over for coffee the next day. Mrs. Johnson had baked the exact apple pie recipe I'd brought to the party, the one Karen had quarantined like toxic waste. We sat on their porch, the same porch where they'd cleaned my cuts, and watched the sunset paint the cul-de-sac gold. We filed the drunk driving reports, Mr. Johnson said quietly. Tony's license is suspended. Melissa's already distancing herself on social media. Personal reasons. Mark called me yesterday asking if I knew a good realtor. They're scattering like roaches when the lights come on. I took another bite of pie. The cardamom hit just right, the way Grandma taught me. For the first time in weeks, the taste didn't feel like loss. Felt like victory. Thank you, I said again. Not just for the video. For choosing the right side. Mrs. Johnson patted my bandaged hand. Honey, we chose the side that was always here. The one with the pencil marks on the wall and the dad who taught half the block how to change oil. Karen's crew was just loud wallpaper. That night I sat on my own porch steps, the same ones where the bat had been propped, and opened the latest email from Agent Martinez. Your mother's cooperation is gold. We've got Karen on tape admitting the password trick and the fake invoices. Sentencing recommendation coming down to 12 months if she stays clean. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. 12 months. A year of my mother learning what family really meant behind bars. Part of me wanted to gloat. The bigger part, the one that still carried my father's voice. Hope she used the time to remember the woman who used to sing me to sleep instead of the one who watched me bleed. I forwarded the email to Harry with 2 words. Keep pushing. He replied instantly. Already filed the motion to dissolve the current HOA board. New election in 60 days. Your name's on the ballot if you want it. I laughed out loud. Me? On the HOA board? The same board that had cheered while their president swung a bat at me? The irony was delicious. Dark, bitter, perfectly sweetened with the taste of payback. I closed the laptop and watched the streetlights flicker on. Somewhere down the block someone was grilling. Normal Saturday night sounds. No jizz, no forced laughter, no matching shirts. Just people living. I flexed my right wrist. The bruise had faded to yellow, but the memory was still sharp. At 5:42 p.m. 1 month ago I'd been invisible. Now the whole neighborhood knew my name. Not Miss Monroe. Not the guest. Lana, the woman who refused to stay on her knees. The woman who turned a driveway beating into a federal case. The woman who reminded everyone that paper covenants cut both ways. I stood up, brushed off my jeans, and headed inside. The pie was still cooling on the counter. Tomorrow I'd slice it, invite the Johnsons over, maybe even Aunt Sarah if she could drive down. Real guests. Real family. No dress code. No HOA family only. Just people who would have helped me up instead of filming the fall. And if Karen's crew ever drove past again, they'd see the new mailbox. Gold letters spelling Monroe. Nothing else. No HOA. No Karen. Just mine. The first rule of my house. You swing a bat at family, you lose everything. And I was finally home. The new election ballots arrived in bright yellow envelopes. Ironic color choice after I'd spent weeks covering Karen's beige with the same shade. I stared at my own name printed under Candidate for President, Sunnyvale HOA Reform slate. Harry had put me up without asking. "You've earned it," he'd said. "Besides, who else is going to make sure the covenants actually protect residents instead of one woman's ego?" I almost declined. Then I pictured Karen's face when the results came in. The same face that had loomed over me with an aluminum bat. Yeah. I was running. Campaigning turned out to be easier than expected. The Johnsons turned their porch into headquarters. Mrs. Johnson baked pies, real ones, not the quarantined kind, and handed them out with flyers that read, "No more matching shirts. No more bats. Just fair rules." Mr. Johnson collected signatures like he was back on the force. "Got 87 already," he'd text at midnight. "Tony's old drinking buddies are switching sides faster than you can say, 'Plea deal.'" Even my mother sent a letter from the federal holding facility. "I voted early from here. For you. The first honest thing I've done in years." I folded it into the war room stack, right next to the video stills. Not forgiveness yet, but acknowledgement. That counted. Election night felt like the anniversary party in reverse. Same cul-de-sac, different energy. No jazz, no forced smiles. Just neighbors grilling burgers, kids running through sprinklers, and a big projector screen set up on my driveway, the same driveway where everything had started. Harry brought popcorn. Marcus brought the final IRS summary. "Karen's looking at 7 to 10 years now. Your mom gets probation if she testifies next month." I nodded, throat tight. The numbers were justice. The empty chair where Karen used to sit was closure. When the results flashed on screen, 78% for the reform slate, cheers erupted so loud the echo reached the golf club where they'd arrested her. People hugged me. Real hugs. No one asked me to take photos. No one handed out t-shirts. Melissa actually walked over, eyes red, and muttered, "I'm sorry. I didn't know how far she'd go." I accepted the apology the way my father would have. Polite, brief, then moved on. Some bridges you rebuild. Others you let burn so the new ones can stand taller. Later, when the crowd thinned, I sat on the porch steps with Harry and a slice of Grandma's pie. The stars were out, crisp and clear like the first night I'd slept in the house after getting the keys back. "You did it," he said quietly. "Not just the house. The whole neighborhood." I took a bite. Cinnamon hit perfect. "We did it. You, Marcus, the Johnsons, even Mom in her own messed up way." He clinked his water glass against mine. "No cocktails tonight, just clear cold truth." "What now?" "President Monroe." I looked down the street at the new Monroe mailbox gleaming under the porch light. Now I make sure no one ever has to bring a pie to their own home and get told it doesn't belong. No more family only. No more bats. Just rules that protect people instead of egos. He grinned. "Sounds like a campaign slogan." "It's a promise." Inside, the height marks on the wall glowed softly under the new yellow paint. Faint but there. Proof I'd always belonged. Outside, the cul-de-sac hummed with normal life. Laughs. Sprinklers. The distant bark of a dog. No drama. No exclusion. Just a neighborhood that had learned the hard way what real family looked like. I locked the door that night feeling lighter than I had in months. The bat was gone. The bruises were fading. And for the first time since 5:42 p.m. that Saturday, I wasn't the outsider. I was home. The architect of my own rules. The keeper of my own story. And if any new Karen ever tried to swing a bat at belonging again, she'd learn the same lesson. Paper cuts from a daughter who knows the law are a whole lot sharper than aluminum.